How much jank is too much jank? When it comes to gaming, that is a very big question, and everyone's got their own perspectives. And as a quick, way of making sure we're on the same page, when I talk about jank, I'm on about those rough edges. You often find it with indie games more than AAAs, although there are some AAAs that have this problem, where perhaps there's just something slightly off about the movement. It doesn't feel quite as fluid, but you can look past it. Or maybe textures load in a bit weird, and again, you can look past it. That's the thing with jank. It's not game-breaking bugs, it's not things that just stop quests working and that kind of stuff. It's just something that goes, oh, maybe this could have spent a bit more time, if you will, in the oven being cooked to perfection. But a lot of the time, you can look past it, especially if you're like me, where you appreciate the fact that someone has put time, and I say someone's really, have put time and effort into making this game. They've put their passion into it, and that's to be respected. But there are those times where it just gets too much. And sometimes that is a scale. The two things I want to talk about today are very much in that mould. And that's why I've not done this as like a Sunday video or even a stream, because I want to put my thoughts out there and then just leave it to the community. I don't want it to be necessarily live interaction, because I think that can devolve into arguments for one and people defending stuff. And I'm like, I don't need it defending. So that's why I've done it this way. I mean, there'll still be arguments in the comments, but at least I can handle them in my own time. So the first one I want to talk about is Avowed, the follow-up to Pillars of Eternity and the sequel Deadfire. And I enjoyed those games, in fact, even so far as I tolerated the spiders, because it's an isometric view, and that was one of the deal breakers at the beginning of Avowed for me, in fact, because it was more Skyrim style, that first-person action RPG way of doing it, but it's a fantasy realm, so of course giant spiders are a thing. On release, of course, there were no mods, and Obsidian, even though they'd done one for Grounded, and Hogwarts Legacy had one, although we don't talk about Hogwarts Legacy, they weren't saying that they'd put an arachnophobia mode in. And I was like, well, I'm not playing a game then. Again, I looked at mods every so often, because I felt the itch. I've played the other two, I enjoyed them, I want to spend more time in this world of Aora, but I just couldn't. And then they went, okay, we've got an arachnophobia mode. Now, is a blob with swords jumping at the screen kind of terrifying in its own way? Yes. Is it more tolerable to someone like me than a spider doing that? Absolutely. So I could finally play it. And like the isometric games, it was very much a sort of open zone feel. So you've got an area, you can explore that, do bits on the map, pick up side quests, all that. But then you connect from one section of a map to another. You don't do that whole journey, you just mystically go from point A to point B. I'm fine with that, because sometimes an open world can be a bit unwieldy. So I get it. And when I went to the second area, I found a point where I was like, right, I want to do this side quest, I think involving an ogre. It's been a few weeks now. And I was like, oh, I could do this thing as well, and went towards this point, and the game so far has gone, hey, you play it your way. There's a whole bunch of stuff at your disposal. You do what you want with it. And there are some times where I was just like, oh, this is a bit, some of the bounties were a bit boring, I guess, to put it bluntly, and some of the other stuff just wasn't working in my brain. But I was like, okay, I will power through, I will persevere, because I want to spend time in this world. But I went to do this side quest, and there was a door that required 2 electrical magic things to be triggered. Now, I wasn't playing a mage build. I don't tend to play mage builds. I think there's too much going on. I have sword, I have bow. Let's go. I'm a simple person by that metric. I don't do wizard builds at all in anything, even though my D&D favourite class is cleric, because I like support. But it's not about the casting of the spells, it's about keeping people alive, and some of the role-playing that can come with how I like to interpret clerics. But yeah, I just didn't have that magic available. The seeds that you can pick up as a way for non-magic use to do that, I already used the one on the door, and there was not another one nearby. Now, I could have run into town and bought a spellbook just for that purpose, but why should I? You have sold me a world where I can do what I want, but if I want to do this one thing, I can't. So, with all the other things that, were imperfect, I just couldn't carry on. And it's one of those where sometimes I've said before in various reviews, like, I've tried playing a game multiple times, and I've often hit a wall and then come back to it. I don't feel the need to come back to Avowed, let's put it that way. That's how much the jank of that one annoyed me. The other example I want to use today is Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. And my history with this is long, because when it was first announced and there were pre-orders and everything like that, like way, way back with the original developer before the Chinese room took it over, I was there. I was like, yep, take my money. And over the years, every so often when I've needed a bit of cash, I've gone, can I cancel that pre-order and get like 60 quid back in my pocket? But maybe it'll come out at some point. So I never did. I always held out that hope. And then it released. I'm like, cool, I can play in this world now. And yes, I did have moments with that as well, where some of the stuff I didn't like hunting down the Anarch symbols and things. I had to use a guide. Some of the mechanics in jumping around and gliding took a bit of getting used to. Like, that was where the jank came in a lot. And some of the interactions felt a bit ropey. The lighting sometimes went a bit weird. It wasn't perfect. But again, I love the world. I love the setting. I enjoyed, yes, okay, you couldn't really craft the vampire the same way as you could in the original. You couldn't, really guide which clan you wanted to go for. And in fact, you being the nomad, you could sort of delve into a load of different clans all at the same time, which is great. You get all those different skill sets. But it means it's a bit less roleplay. You can just do whatever you want. So I understand that, but again, I forgave it. I was like, okay, this is a story they want to tell, and they want to make sure we've got a good toolkit. You don't have to take all those skills, they're just available. What I found is, there is a particular bug. If you take the La Sombra skill, I think it is, that makes you kind of basically invisible, that can cause some game-breaking bugs. I did not know this. So, and I guess while I'm talking about jank, I am mentioning a game-breaking bug, but the fact is I was putting up with the jank until the game-breaking bug, just for clarity. But yeah, I was enjoying my time, and I was in the bit where you have to chase down Damsel, because I watched the ending on YouTube at the end, because of what happened. And she's meant to be there with the sniper rifle. Or there's meant to be a scent trail from the sniper rifle to her. So I went to that section, used my La Sombra skill, of course, because I had it. So I was like, I'll just circumvent all the enemies. Went up. I'm here. What's going on? There was no progression of that quest from the point of finding the sniper rifle and the bullets next to it. Which, as I say, as far as I've understood from what I've looked up, they're meant to give you the scent to follow. So I was like, okay, I'll reload. Maybe I need to kill all the enemies in the air, and it just hasn't put that as a sort of quest section, quest tag. So went through, killed as many things as I could find. I was like, yeah, pretty sure it's now devoid of vampires and ghouls and everything. And I went up to the sniper rifle. And again, I'm just stood there looking at a sniper rifle and bullets on the floor going, there is nothing going on. I was teabagging the sniper rifle by the end, like crouching, standing, trying to figure out, do I need to do a specific thing, coming at it from different angles, coming from behind it and trying to get through the doors behind it, trying to do everything I could to progress this quest, but no. It did not want to play ball. So then I looked it up and went, oh, La Sombra bug. I couldn't remember when I picked that up. It was probably hours before. I didn't want to replay hours of the game. Now, like I say, I have looked up a video on YouTube that kind of says this is what happened. But I shouldn't have had to do that. I really shouldn't have had to do that. And that frustrates me no end. Because I got an ending, yes, but it wasn't my ending. It wasn't the ending I chose. It was just someone else's ending that I happened to see on YouTube. So some of the choices I made weren't reflected in that, and it didn't feel as conclusive. But I still got to see the ending, so I guess it's fine. But for me, I put up with a lot of jank until then. I'm not saying Bloodlines or Avowed are perfect in any way, shape or form, but in both situations I put up with so much jank, but then came to a point where the game said, no, actually, you can't progress now. So that I think that for me is the core of it. I will put up with a certain amount of jank until the game basically blocks me from proceeding. So really, for me, it's the game-breaking bugs. That is my cut-off point. I will put up with a lot of nonsense before then. But what about you? Like I say, I do want to open this to the community. I think it's quite interesting because some people will probably find cheats that work around it, or console commands that progress to the next stage of the quest. I have done that, particularly in Elder Scrolls games and things like that. Bethesda's really good at having a good system of console commands that you can do whatever with. But I wasn't going to look that up for all this. Again, it's just one of those. But like I say, what are your thoughts? Where do you stand on it? Is any moment of graphical imperfection your cut off, or will you put up with a lot? Let me know. But until next time, as always, thank you for watching and take care.